Okay.
Welcome to the UKBC. Tonight's interview is with Ian Quigley and Andy Cooke. So welcome, guys.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Andy, I believe you're Northern Ireland,
Yes.
and Ian, you're, as you were calling it earlier, the Midlands of Southern Ireland.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So, and you're about 3.5 hours apart by all accounts.
Yeah, roughly that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've certainly never been to Ireland. I do want to get over there because I love my bream fishing, so I will get over there one day for that. But on the budgie side, I've certainly not spoken to Irish fanciers or anything. So I think probably really just tell us a little bit about the Irish fancy, really. Just is it any different to what we do over here, really?
Go ahead, Ian. You
Go on, Ian.
I've been in budgies in Ireland since 1990s, and I was as a young kid at the time. But as time progressed, I've been in and out of the hobby in Ireland, and I think my strongest time probably was from 2000 to 2008 when budgies were starting to get that bit bigger, and we could bring in birds quite easily to Ireland. And Frank Silva, if I remember back in the day, was a big hitter. And obviously Huxley and Marchand when they were their partnership. So the birds were getting bigger and stronger, but the visually a very different bird to what we have today for sure. 2008, then I suppose I left the hobby. I came back in 2015, and I realised the birds have gone a whole different level, absolute difference completely again.
Yeah.
And it was only actually while I was actually out on my travels one day I seen some birds in a pet shop actually, and I said, God, having the exhibition birds really come on again, So I ended up buying them, and that was the start of me again, And 10 became 200 before I knew it,
Yeah.
But I mean, for me as a breeder here in Ireland, it can be difficult to get to source birds is the biggest problem. I have a close network of friends that are very, we work together, and we share and do all that. Money side of it is never really an issue, and I know what I like, so I kind of strive to do that, and those that do kind of keep with me in the hobby and all that, like what I like maybe as well, But there is different types of and frames of budgies in Ireland. Of course, there's, you've obviously got what we call the European type, and then you've got the English style bird, which I started originally with and still kind of progress with on and off, and combine both types together, I suppose, on the way, keep style and the big head that we're looking for these days,
Yeah, I think that's the skill, isn't it? Is you can't just keep breeding European feather and frame and that together all the time. You've got to mix it up, because I mean, look at how many of the Europeans wanted our blood to go to theirs.
Common as well. And to be fair, like European birds will have the nice head and direction, but they will reduce in size slightly. The frame is. Yeah. The frame on the bird itself is smaller. It's just the feather we've made bigger. So, like when you've got it in your hand, you realize it looks bigger on the perch, but when you actually put them in your hand, they're not as big as you think they are. No. They're carrying themselves by feather most of the time. And to introduce the English blood, a solid budgie into that was creating more frame, I suppose, on the bird, but at the same time, I suppose trying to keep the portment and style of the same,
Yeah,
which never easy.
No. And Andy, do you go along the same lines, or do you stick to a certain type, or?
Yeah, I don't have any European blood. I don't use it. It's not something I favour. It may be something to do with a lack of experience with it as well, but it's definitely something that I don't favour. My birds are purely Huxley and Marchand. There's nothing else involved there. That's just like Ian said. We all have the kind of bird that we like, and for me, that's the kind of bird I fancy. That kind of feather, that kind of structure.
Yeah.
The basically the marchant grey green, light green.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yes.
So how will you progress now with their blood? Do you still find their bloodline to bring in, or?
Yeah, there are one or two guys who have that same line now. Obviously with Alan finishing and Adrian buying a third of the stud, and then Adrian finish, and then I was lucky enough to bring a lot of the stud here
Right.
to complement what I already had from Alan. So that's it's all one family, and that's where I want to stick with.
Yeah. Yeah.
It seems to work for
It's,
me. I don't have to really worry then. Am I going to have a nest? Do I worry about a longer tail or a longer feather, long flight? I don't have to. I don't have that issue.
no.
But that marchant type feather and structure is the bird I like.
Yeah. And you certainly do a fair bit of winning, so it's got to be
Yeah,
working,
yeah. It hasn't let me down yet. So
No.
that there's from the 13 patronage shows at best in showing at 12 of them and best opposite sex at the 13th. So it seems to
Wow.
be working okay at the minute.
Yeah. Yeah, because obviously when I interviewed Andy, with his judging and that, obviously your birds were some of the birds that we spoke about, and he obviously visited you.
Yeah.
So yeah, they certainly look nice birds, nice solid, birds. So
I find them that kind of feather for me. I really spend a lot of time in condition, and I can work well with that feather to bring them in that condition for the shows.
yeah,
And funny, it was something Andy did compliment on was the condition, especially of the hen that won best in show that day, the
yeah,
cinnamon hen.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I suppose, is there any problem with movement of birds within Ireland? There's no borders or any paperwork to worry about. It's just across the water, is it?
There's none. There is the few going back and forwards, not big amounts there. Some will outcross maybe 2 or 3 cocks over and hope for the best. But there's been I've not heard of anyone being stopped or anything like that. I've had some visitors from the UK and bought from me and gone back successfully.
Oh,
Um,
right. Okay.
haven't brought any birds in now since I suppose 21 was the last
Yeah.
time, but it was all legal then for me. I brought in
Yeah.
from Belgium. Um, I brought in some birds from Belgium there. I paid a company to bring them in for me. I had all their certificates and stuff like that. But then there was new forms, and then 30-day
Yeah.
regulations brought in, and that was that. But look, what I brought in at the time was the amount I brought in. I suppose there was for me, it's nearly a 5-year plan.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I kind of would try and keep my room in a way that I'd always be able to rotate it, regardless of whether I never brought something in. I'd always make sure that I wasn't over pushing the same line too much, that I'd always be able to work my own back to my own. So I'd know the families that create a certain style. I know the families that have the feather, the body. Now I just combine them, and I mightn't do it for a whole year. And then the next year I'd say, well, I've got that family kind of come together again, and I'll chance putting them together. Not always it works, but this year, toward the end of the year, I kind of clicked something that I was looking for.
Yeah.
So I've started this year on the same sort of follow up to see whether I could continue that again. So I've gone with I've actually kind of disregarded a certain family I was using. I've gone back to a different one that I started back in 2019.
Right.
So it's actually kicked off pretty okay, and I've actually managed to turn what was a very small number into a large number over the last 9 months.
Oh, that's good. And do you tend
Yeah.
to breed all year round, or?
I do, yes, because I would rotate my birds so that there's never a hen in the cage for more than 2 rounds.
Yeah.
I've always got double the hens, the amount of cages I've got, and I usually keep just about maybe 12 more cocks than the cages I've got, basically just as backups. But generally, I'd be kind of picky about the cocks I'd keep.
Yeah.
So I'd like them all to look kind of the same on the perch. So they'd be what I'd keep. Anything else then would just be, I'd only look at it and I'd know I'd never use it. So I'd have no reason to have it in the room in the first place.
No,
So
no.
it's just temptation at times. I think if you keep birds that you're really
Yeah.
not going to use them.
Yeah, the amount of times that people had told me in the past that, oh, it's bred off something good, you got to keep it. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I've never used it, so why would I keep it? You know, I mean, I
Yeah.
only run 20 cages, so 25 cocks is absolutely ample for me, because I do tend to have a break. I haven't yet felt the need to breed all year round. Even with rotating like you, I keep enough hens to keep the cocks busy.
Well, obviously you've got to keep the room clean and scrubbed down and sterile.
Yeah.
So me, I run 3 blocks. So I block 1, 2, and 3. So block 3 is in a separate room. So I'd always be able to kind of strip down a block and disinfect it down, get all the nest boxes into the dishwasher. I have enough nest boxes to rotate 12 cages all the time anyway.
Right.
So I've double of everything on that. So I literally can click off a box after a round and click on a fresh, clean one. I have a dishwasher in the room, so I dishwasher all the boxes at 65 degrees, so it kills all nasties, and they come out clinical clean every time. And it's a good fresh start for round 2 every time, And then, perches are very important. You got to keep them clean daily,
Yeah, yeah. And one thing I did notice, and whether it was just the selected few that Andy Eden visited, I noticed there was a lot of wire cage use, for breeding. Is that have you got wire, Ian, or are you standard cages?
I did have wire, and I had wire for years, 24-inch. I did have up to 50 wire cages at one stage. And when I built my new room in 21, I used to keep 10 cages on one wall on the left, and on the back wall I had 12 Austringer, and that's kind of all I really had. And then I was offered some more Austringer then, and I decided, look, I'll take down the wire and I'll put the Austringer block. They were bigger cages and there was more of them, so I just like the way I can clean it down. It's a lifetime cage, you see.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Andy, because you've got wire, Andy, haven't you?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have a bank of 14, so I only work with 12 pair. That's all I work with, and then the other 2 I use for like a nursery cage.
Yeah.
But 12 pair. I use the Molinari, the Italian cage. It means I can just unhook them, wash them, put them back on again.
They're the best. They're the best metal cages because I've had them myself. They are a very good cage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got all wire, but mine are going back good while now, but they were super pet ones. But I can just lift one off. You have to be a bit careful because they are a bit tight, but I can lift one off, go and jet wash it if I need and put it back, But
yeah, it was the structure of the Molinari cages that I liked. They're very heavy, good quality.
Yeah.
Really, really good quality.
They're not soft wire bars on them. They're quite a rigid bar on them.
Yeah.
Which is very. They don't dent or ding or any of that. There's a chrome finish on them as well, and they've got good tray system. You can go wire floor or not.
Yeah, I have wire floors in mine as well.
Yeah.
It's just something I preferred from even having the pigeons and stuff before. The wire floors, everything away from the feet.
Yeah.
I think I had a couple of years of breeding in wooden cages, got red mite, burnt the lot, and my dad he races pigeons, and he has done since he was 12 or 13, I think. And he said, "Oh, we'll get you some wire cages," and they weren't very easy to source, but it certainly changed the way I look at how I manage my bird room. And now I've got all the clutter out of my actual bird room and into a store come kitchen. It's completely changed the way I look at cleaning, and it's so easy now to keep things clean. I do it. It's as simple as that,
I think if you can rotate your equipment more, have double everything. I like to use 2 buckets. I'd have a bucket of Milton, and I'd have a freshwater bucket, and I'll drop all the drinkers into that on a daily basis. And after a couple of days, they'll hit the dishwasher probably for a good thorough clean. But I'd always have the same amount of drinkers to replace them, and they'll go to the Milton first, and then whatever additives I'm adding to the water, then that'll be in the other bucket, then ready mixed, ready to go. Just dip one in, dip one out. It's as simple. I'll go around the really quick. I've got 39 cages in total, and I can get around my room, feed and water, and I can do it in 25 minutes handy, you know.
Yeah, I find with my room would be everything's either stainless steel or PVC. So again, cleanliness right away. It's just the same as Ian said. They're double drinkers, double feeders. You know, the feeding dishes are all ceramic. So again, everything's just sitting there ready to replace. You know, I do find the PVC right throughout is fantastic. You know, there's no paint, nothing required. Just I use the Colin Leask, the Clean and Clear Checkmate. I use that as my daily cleaner, and absolutely phenomenal product. You know, nothing sticks to the walls or floors with that stuff.
No, it's very good. Yeah,
fantastic. I just recently started using it, and it's changed the way that I look at it. You know, I could have spent 4 hours, 5 hours on a Saturday cleaning. The cleaning part for the PVC now has been reduced dramatically.
I've actually just gone over to, I bought myself a really cheap window cleaning kit. So I can dip it in a bucket of disinfectant, whatever it is, wipe that on the walls, or I have actually started spraying it on. And then 5-10 minutes later, I get the window squeegee, go across the PVC, and it literally just, all it comes off, blood, poo, everything, and then gets to the bottom, and all I got to do is wipe it round with a rag. So I haven't quite finished my flight yet. No.
Ostringer cages are quite similar that way. I have a massive big sink in my room, so you can drop the whole tray into the sink, and I use a spray bleach basically, and I'll spray the floor. I use a small hand scrubber then, and then once you rinse it, you can actually pull it with the squeegee, like you were saying, for the windows, and they go straight dry. And I put in sheets of paper, then I put the cage floor back in. I generally just put the paper in because I find on a daily purpose, it's great to remove the hens, fresh droppings. It cuts down the level of fluid on the floor of the cage. So therefore, they're not walking in it, mashing it up, bringing it back up to the perches or back into the box, creating bacteria. So I generally like to scrunch up the paper on it every second day, or if I can, I do it every day, depending on how strong the hen is actually, relieving herself under the perch after, or how heavy a sitter she is, you know.
Yeah, that's why I like using the wire floors, just for that same reason. You know, for me, that obviously
when I was using the wire myself, Andy, I found that when I'd be on a long day, sometimes I'm on a long trip out and I'd be doing a long job and I might get back all day. And sometimes, there'd be something might get knocked over, or a feeder or something, and it's gone through the tray on me, and the birds be feeding chicks. You go home and it could be a whole disaster cage for you, where, you'd have to make sure that the feeder themselves couldn't be turned over.
Yeah.
Or you'd see it, like I like to use the Chinese tub, won't get me wrong. I find it very useful because I can wash them quick. You can buy them in abundance, and I'd feel, when you're out a long day, a good tub of food will last them well,
Yeah.
But sometimes you could come back and find that tub scattered over, and you have a hen there with a hungry brood there waiting for some food, and you might till 6-7 o'clock in the evening. So you have to you got to be thinking outside the box. So, I kind of keep a big weight in the bottom of my feeders now, so that they kind of can't knock it.
Yeah.
It's just, you'd always feel like, you come home after a long day and you think, and you do that really fast glance on everything to make sure everyone's hearts are still ticking away good, and, and everything's good. And you're like, okay, now we'll get on with feeding you and sorting out everything else,
Yeah. I mean, my next question, people probably think I think you're on Mars or something, but is there any other things, or is there any products or anything that you struggle to get out there, or is it literally just order it and it gets delivered? Do you have seed issues at all, or?
we're
No?
good. We've got some great seed merchants here. I would actually say I would go to Northern Ireland for my food because it's always in abundance. I can go to Jeffrey Beattie or I can go to the likes of Fraser's where they have everything you want. Products
Yeah.
as regard, like I like to use
That's
Fraser.
Fraser's is the
Yeah.
sort of pigeon supplement or
Yeah.
whole feed thing, aren't they?
Yeah. They do the tea and they do they've got a good 50-50 mix that I like using. You can get millet sprays, you can buy most of the stuff on the shelf there, like they do one now, a new one there that I've been using, Fraser Boost, which I found the birds are loving. And it's really putting the muscle up on the chicks very fast. I have to say it's probably the best product I started using this year.
Is that a liquid one or a feed?
Actually, a feed sort, it'd be very like a multi-grain, like a chopped pinhead oat with oils and essential oils, almost like it was mixed with Thrive and Gloss. It can be eat without mixing to soft food, small amounts. But I mean, they eat it well.
Yeah, definitely great product.
Yeah. No, I only played it there at our last show because it was part of the prize for best in show. I got a few bags of it, and I said I'll try that, and there were small bags, and I said, oh my God, I flew through that, and I don't see any of it on the floor wasted or anything. This and that. They must have really liked it, and I always test products with the hens because hens will eat everything, they'll eat themselves if they let them, and basically, I put it in with them, and they just turned it to dust.
Yeah,
I thought it was good.
I actually add it to my soft food as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely, it's great stuff.
Yeah. Well, this year, I mean, I've had one or two problems over the years of addled eggs and bits and pieces, and I've always thought that, or I've never fed anything in the water. It's always been just plain water, and they get everything that I want them to have in their soft food. But this year I have actually relented, and I've just added some Aviform Advanced Gold to the water. But I've started off on a very, very low dose and just sort of built up. And to be honest, I'm probably only at about 50% the mix that they say to use, and I won't go any higher than that. Now I'm in the middle of the breeding season, but
it's a strong. I will agree with you there. It is a strong.
Yeah. You open the bottle and he takes your head off. But no, I had some hens with cysts on the preen gland, and Kevin, our avian vet, he said that perhaps it was a vitamin A deficiency. So that's what I've done this year, and I shall run it. I never start and stop things. That I will use now probably for 2 years, if I'm honest, and I'll see what happens, because it was always hens that I'd bred with that then came out, rested, and then all of a sudden I wanted to use them again. They got a preen gland cyst, so there was something happening, with them feeding chicks or whatever. So I'll see what happens in 2 years' time. Really, is where I pitch that, really, because you're not going to cure it overnight. So
Well, sometimes with food nutrition for birds, they are a small bird. At the end of the day, you can overwhelm them with stuff, or you can underwhelm them. It's getting the balance, and we all have our own ways of making stuff. I personally don't like to make a wet soft food. I like it to be kind of fall out with the hand, not stick to the hand.
Crumbly.
I find it too much moisture. Like again, that long day, if you're gone for that long day and you've got a hot summer's day and you're reigniting a raw egg supplement in a hot environment and you over moisten it, it's going to turn into something that you don't want it to turn. Like it's a haven for bacteria.
And I find as well that the top, if it's too wet, the top and bottom beak of the chicks can get compacted. And I mean, I check everything daily, beak, bum, wings, whatever it might be, feet, but every so often, if I have fed something that's a little bit wetter than normal, you can see that it's stuck up under their beak or under their tongue, and that's when you get them deformities which pay havoc, really. So
you'll also find that most of the food won't be eaten when it's too wet, and you'll see waste.
True.
They won't scavenge through the actual the mass of it. It would be like a mass to them.
Yeah.
And I find that when it's just loose enough, I find that there is no major. I use the sweet corn. Some don't really like using it, but I find my birds devour the food. The sweet corn is the first thing I put into the mixing bowl, so that when I add the powders, like for instance, like the supplements, the aminos, anything like that, prebiotic, it will stick to the first thing they go for when they want to eat the soft food,
Yeah.
and therefore they're getting first go at the actual minerals I'm putting into the soft food in the first place, and that's the first to get the sweet corn will absorb it first, and then all the rest of the stuff in. But the sweet corn will have absorbed most of the powdered supplement that I put in, like the calcium, etc., etc.
Yeah. So, from a show point of view, then, where is the same season? Do you run sort of July till October on shows?
Yeah, we have one or two smaller shows in June, and then we break until August, September,
Mm.
and then our sort of specialist budgie shows will finish in September, and then one or two CBSs will continue on after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Generally, for me, I would finish up the last one before the club show. That's enough for me.
Yeah. And have you ever come across to the club show at all with
Oh yeah,
birds?
well, not with birds. The
No.
trouble is, it's okay taking them across, but we can't bring them home again.
Yeah, that's the big problem. Yeah.
That's the issue with the restrictions.
And
Whether it's wishful thinking or not. The last year I would have liked to have taken a couple, and then this year I would like to, but again, I don't know where it's wishful thinking or maybe a good thing.
Oh.
It's it's a great day out, and definitely gives you something to think about and where you need to go, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to see. I mean, that's why when beginners, ask me, oh, my birds aren't good enough to show. Well, you don't know how good or bad they are until you put them up against other birds.
yeah,
I mean, my first ever best in show this year, he was far from the best bird in my shed, but on the day he was in the right condition, behaved himself. And what I thought was the best bird in my shed didn't perch for the entire day, so he doesn't stand a chance, But until you get out there, I didn't know, because the best one always sat at home and showed at home. But of course, in that, the stress and that of traveling and that, it just threw him off, I think.
That's it for us. The birds, our birds would be, it's almost a 5-day travel for us with birds to come to the club show as well. And that's going to take an awful lot out of them as well. It's not, we can't just turn up on a Saturday morning. We need to be sort of leaving here Thursday night.
Yeah.
We're not getting. Sometimes we might not get home until Monday morning or Sunday evening. It's a long time.
I did that for the first time this year with our UKBC show. We went up. I think we went up on the Saturday, but I didn't get home until sort of the Monday. And that's the longest I've ever been away from my birds. But they were good. I mean, I kept them topped up. They had soft food and millet and all sorts. So but they're a bit more versatile than, or a bit, stronger than we realise. But I think you've got to get your birds used to travelling and everything.
I think sometimes when you're breeding, and like Andy, he's got a good keen eye for birds, and I'd like to say I have kind of myself as well. And sometimes when you've bred that nest of ones that these ones will go somewhere this year, sometimes you have that instinct with them. I knew with a couple of mine there over a few years, and I'd work with them birds more as opposed to the rest of them, and I'd try and keep them more of a chill bird as such, because I've seen birds jumping up and down that have been up against mine and not standing still, and back to the floor and up again and back to the floor and up again, and there's rules and I suppose time limits to how long they can spend jumping up and down, etc. And I always say, you've got to put that time in to get them away from doing that. And so a lot of it is just the temperament of the bird. He might always sit on the perch in your room, and is he buck wild or not? Sometimes they just generally are bred that way, where they just are not going to be calm for you on the day. And the minute the judge puts a stick at them, they're gone mad, you know?
Yeah.
And I just found there's certain birds over the last 2 years for me, they just want to be shown. You'd know them. Andy had it there with his cinnamon hen. She wanted to be shown. She'd never budge, you know?
No.
I have it with a grey pied. He'll turn around, he'll come back the same way, but he won't jump to the floor.
No,
you know.
no, that's right. And I
And
think
The club should experience
a baby.
Sorry, go ahead, Ian.
I just knew as a baby that bird had the potential to do that. A good, the nature of the bird from the nest to going through the mold, through the interaction in the flights, the whole lot, always a calm customer, and he's done his work over the last since 2022.
Yeah, I was saying about the club show. Obviously I'm a second year beginner now, and to come back and see the massive changes, and everyone tries to get their best at the club show, so you're going to get that benchmark of what you need. And to be fair, obviously you don't have a beginner section at the club show; it's straight into novice. But there's some quality birds there right through. So it gives us a bit of a benchmark going forward as well, I think.
Yeah.
No,
There's as I say, you asked about the show scene down between Northern and Southern Ireland. The numbers have definitely declined. You probably agree with that, Andy, would you?
Yeah.
The numbers have declined, and you've got your strong hitters, I suppose, that will bench quite a lot, and then there's few that will maybe bring 4, maybe 5, whatever they have on the day. We don't all have big. Some don't have big rooms. I've got a friend there. He runs a 6 cage room. I've another friend who runs 10. They can't keep big numbers of birds, so what they have, they work with. They try their best on the bench, and that's all they can do. Some guys have like I've got quite a big room. You can have 200 birds, but it only takes a team of 10 to actually go very far. To get the right one. The rest are just the background making them birds. But there's guys that have the 6 cages can do just as good.
Yeah,
And
I think when you've got smaller numbers,
it's a confidence thing in Ireland that some of them just feel that have I got enough? Will I have enough to show? I've only got 2. Will I bother? And this is where we have these number problems.
Yeah. I think with a smaller number of cages and a smaller stud, I think once you get your eye in and you know what you want, you're far more selective. Going back to that, being told that because a cock or a hen's bred off of something, you've got to keep it. Yeah, the hens you might, because we all need hens, but the cock birds, I think you get far harder. Yeah,
be forgiven, but you need to know something though. You can't go pot blank into it. You've got to know something what you're doing and what the pedigree's coming from. I'm a firm believer in where the grandparents of my birds would be from, and some of the grandparents are actually still alive in my room. I moved that quickly sometimes with certain families. I can often move it 8 months at a time. As soon as I think they're mature enough, I'll put them in. But hens. If the hen is a good father, she stands a great chance in being in the breeding team, regardless whether she's colossal sized, medium. As long as if her mother and the father were good, and you can go back to the history then before that, and there was good history, it will come back. The grandparents' history will always come out a generation on. I'm a firm believer in it.
Do you tend to breed in lines or families, Andy?
Yeah, just as I say, I stick with the one family from, again, all Marchant. I now have all Alan Marchant's breeding books there as well, going back to 2014. So I have a great record system.
Yeah.
Again, with the smaller stud I have, I sort of tend to I keep a lot of hens now. Now that I'm sort of getting the birds established and getting a few numbers around, I keep around 70 74 birds, I think I have, but a massive amount of hens. But again, would be very selective on the cocks.
Yeah.
Definitely. Just when I started the first time, I had 14 cages and I had 28 birds. So if anything went wrong, I had nothing to replace them with. So I just persevered then and just built up just on what I had, and then made the add 2 then from Adrian as well this year, moving forward.
Yeah.
So I have just this week put 12 pair together, and I still have, I'm sure I still have another 12 cocks in the flight, but still would have 30 hens in the flight.
Yeah.
Just well, 20, maybe 24 hens still in the flight. So I still have plenty coming through, and younger hens that they can just sit there and mature away.
But that's the joy of the spare hens, and having good records, as Andy said, and knowledgeable on records. And if you're a good stockman and you keep your records correct, and you know where things are coming from, you know who old birds are, it's half the battle in what's going into your next cage when it's vacant. I'd have a hen flight there. There could be 40, 45 hens in that at the minute. There's a nursery trolley with very few in that, just ones that are tougher on the mold. I wouldn't put them in with the big guns just yet, because they just get bullied, There'll be 39 cocks in the cages at the minute, and then there's probably 20 more left out of that. In the cock flight itself, there's only 20 spares at the minute. I'd usually have a lot more than that, but I've cut back an awful lot over the last couple of months, so I wouldn't have the numbers I used to have. No. But even the hen numbers have gone down. They would always be over 100 hens at the best of times, But I've cut back massively on hens as well, so I've nearly got equal numbers, which is not something I do, But I've got a young cock flight there that's maturing birds there as well. There's probably 15 cocks in that, and they're just going through the scratchy stage. They were the last, say, good cocks I liked that I kept out of coming to the end of the 23 ring, I suppose,
Yeah. And do you keep your hens and cocks separate all the time, or do you mix the sexes?
Don't mix them, no, I don't mix the hens and cocks, because I've had too many good hens go barren from being in the cocks in the flights and laying too early, that one egg wonder and never lay again. I don't know if you've ever had that situation, but I've found that's something that there was too many hens trying to lay in the corners of the cages all the time, and I just keep them separate. They can see each other. They're only a foot away, but they're not making contact. But they're directly in visual of each other. All the flights can see each other in the flights, the way I have it set up.
Yeah. And you, Andy, do you?
Yeah, I just let them stay together. I have 4 flights there, two double trolley flights, and I only use the top halves really. So generally I would have adult cocks and hens in one, and then the current year young birds go in the other. And then sort of 4 to 6 weeks before getting ready for pairing, then I'll split them up, really just more for assessment than anything. And then but they'll stay split up for around 4 weeks before then they go into the breeding cage. Again, just put the cocks in first for a week, and then just introduce the hens. It sort of gives me more time once the cocks settle to sort of choose the hen for them.
Yeah.
But then throughout the rest of the breeding season here, they will all stay separate until I sort of get all the cages all running well, and then I can put them all back into one flight, and anything later on then can maybe choose its own when it comes into form, and then with the other flight I'll just get it ready for the young birds, the current year young birds.
Yeah, very similar to what I do actually. I'm a great believer in that, splitting before you pair them up. Even now, I've come probably the end of January, I will separate the young hens and young cocks that aren't old enough yet from each other. As simple as that. I think I had too many not go into the breeding cage really ready, but I think that separation, they say the distance makes the heart grow fonder or something, isn't it? So keen, and make them keen, especially the cockbirds. But yeah.
I came home from work today and I had three young cock birds, and they're all bloody faced where they've been fighting.
Oh dear.
This is the aggressions, the breeding aggressions, because when the room is loud, it buzzes at the best of times, and the cocks just get over. They just go OTT, and next thing there must have been a massive fight today, and there's two
Wow.
greens in the hospital cage, two really good greens with the heads. One got a bash up at the top of the ear. The other lad's a bit shook up, and
Just pair up the winner.
yeah, that's it. But they've literally exhausted themselves.
Wow.
The three of them. Now this
Yeah.
same bird, one of them is a double factor yellow, and he's a big old bruiser of bird. And he got into fierce war about 2 months ago with two other cockbirds, and I thought he calmed down a bit. So he spent the last couple of months growing back all the feathers that are pulled out of his face, and the fighting and the taking lumps out of each other, and he's come back perfect, and he's starting again at it.
Yeah.
And then himself charged back up again. He's starting to do the fighting and the fight. So this is where I would start. I would have other flights. I just you could put them in there to chill out and take them away and move them in else, But they are ideal birds for pairing up with if you have the time and the cage to put them into. But they're just peaking at times you're not ready to use them at times.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, is there anything that you'd like to ask about the UKBC, or have we missed anything that you wanted to chat about?
No, I have just recently joined the UKBC.
Yeah, you have. Yeah.
After chatting with Andy.
Yeah.
So I have. It looks good. The websites are great.
It's very informative.
Very informative, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're trying to do. I mean, when we were over 700 members now in 2 years. So, and a big section of that is what I class as hobby breeders and pet keepers, really, not, and then I think they're the sort of missed part of the hobby for so long. I mean, I've even tried to start a hobby breeders show, but it's getting interest in those type of shows, because they're not show birds, they're not necessarily pet birds as such, but
they keep breed as well. I have them as well.
Yeah, there's.
I have the helicopter budgie.
Yeah. I mean, we already know, the birds of colour, we call them heritage budgies, and that's already established. So it's something I shall keep chipping away at, because there are thousands of people, out there, thousands of birds that just do the breeding in the back garden, and some may not want to show, but I think there's so many lovely combinations.
Huge number of people like that. In that area, there's so many pet budgie breeders. It's phenomenal. Like I got into the helicopter ones. I specify in rainbow coloured ones. Mostly violet based birds. I'm crossing into other things there. I've got quite a few of them. I've got about 60 of them. I started with 12. But I've got 60 of them now. A lot of them would be split. They're as much work as trying to breed a recessive pied.
Yes.
If I could finally get a recessive pied, I'd be great eventually. But I'm working on it. I do like a few rares myself, and you see a lot of different stuff up in UKBC, I suppose, and things like that. But information. There's always someone looking for. I would read most comments that would come up, and if I thought I had a solution, I'd put it in. I'm sure. We all have some techniques. Everyone has. Andy'd have great bird techniques because his pigeon background, I suppose. I always say pigeon breeders are the best budgie breeders. And it's I once upon a time was a pigeon man myself. And I've always enjoyed having them as a hobby before I got into smaller birds. Kept rare type pigeons. I kept Mondinas, and I used to like tumblers and stuff like that. I colour, just different colours, different mutations of pigeons. But again, you couldn't. You like most things, you start a good thing with certain breed or something, and then you can't get it anymore. And I couldn't get these types, and it's the same probably for the hobby here in Ireland at times where the import export is the ruination of it at the minute. I think where now there's a huge lot of lads that pull together. In fairness, like there's a great community of guys. I mean we've there's been a recent talk of a good big show coming up for 2024 where it's all in the pipelines, and we'd hope to put on a bigger show. And I'd love a challenge. I love to go into a show with a good challenge and feel like we've really worked hard to be there.
Yeah. I think that's what's happened over here. Is we've got so many classes now and so many shows. It just feels so spread out all the time. I know one chap this year. He showed his birds all over the place. But I just think sometimes he just needed to sort of take a step back, prepare the birds a little bit better, and maybe would have done better at fewer shows. But but he's done well and he's happy. So you can't ask for more than that, really.
Yeah, so, you can have a bird that goes to show and he'll hold condition, or she'll hold condition and do very well on the bench, and stay intact, and that's part of the battle. You can just as easily come home from a show and that bird can injure itself just going back into the flight or back into a cage. You might never see that bird ever on a show bench again.
No.
There's you get the pin feathers, the bloods, all the problems that we all face on the show day itself. I've often been out in the morning there trying to remove blood off birds and stuff and get them back clean again before I'd head off. And it's like I go up to the north. I'd support up the north there. I've shown my Andy quite a few times, and it's a good spin and a journey for me. We get B&B, my wife and I, and we'd stay over for the night. We'd have dinner with the guys if we can, and it's always enjoyable, But but for we're trying to limit the shows down here to just in a day, which would be great because it's a 2-day event and it's not everyone's cup of tea, unfortunately, No. And it can be quite a lot. I think it's a bit much for the birds, and especially you can be in that peak heat in the summer then, and it's very stressful, for the birds, And I think to get it all wrapped up in a day and have your birds home and cool back in the cool of the shed, it's great, But sometimes it can be just too much, and I think less is more,
Yeah. So what do you think, Andy, that the hobby needs in Ireland to move forward, or are you content with where it is now?
I'm quite content. There's a great team, running the shows, a great team administration as well. We're definitely, keeping up with sort of modern methods, judges, everything. I think obviously we'd all like more members, same as anywhere else. But it's a great team of guys, just a great team at the top that doing the organization. So it is, and again we're getting fantastic judges coming across, and we have judges there that we've been speaking to for right into 2025. So fresh faces and new ideas, and
it's good.
Everything's going to come on well,
Yeah. Well, I think we'll leave it there for now, guys. Thank you very much for taking part. It was really interesting.
More than welcome.
And we'll do some more interviews, perhaps individual, and have a look at the birds, and you'll go into your methods a little bit deeper. Maybe next year.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, from all the members, which does include yourselves, but everybody else, thank you very much, and we will speak soon. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All the best. Bye.